Heidi ho, neighborino. Well, we made it to the great hump day. The day that humps back. That was kind of like a Tuesday for me. Monday wasn't even half as bad as Tuesday, but it was only the morning. Afternoon on Tuesday, it was like Monday is over with. I don't know, all the problems. Had to fix my bike, get her back on the road again. It was looking like the cyberpunk lifestyle was getting even too tough out here in fucking Crappada these days. But I had an appointment in the evening to go and see an apartment that, well, not even really an apartment, just shared accommodation. You get one room and 100+ year old house. One of these old like farmhouses, manor type houses. It's been the Vancouver special that old house, decrepit, somebody buys it cheap, like we're talking back in the 70s or the 80s. It's been going on like this for a long time. They divide it into each room is its own rental, shared kitchen. Now this place had gas stoves, and because the house is so old, right? But what do they have it? They have like 6 suites for rent, maybe 5. 2 are like 800, and then all the rest were like 675 or $700. So they've got the whole place divided like 8 ways. There's a couple places in the that they had been rented out. There was a couple rooms which had been rented out. Most of them were empty. And in talking to them, it has the development proposal right on the corner, right in front of the house. It's supposed to turn that lot and the next lot, maybe a few others. 61 apartments. But you know what? The way the economy is, they can't even do it because all these other rentals that have just opened up that are empty are charging $2,000 a head. So this house kicked out 8 or 9 or 10 renters about a year ago. The whole thing sat empty while they're doing their development proposals. And now, even though the development proposal it said on the board like July 25th, pretty recently, so I don't know what happened about that, and I don't know what happened about them securing the credit, even if they did get approval. But somehow the real estate or the management company, because it is a management company, it's not an individual on this one, they decided to re-rent all the suites and get it filled up with people and making that $4,000 or $5,000 a month bank. See, what they used to do is remodel these old houses and cut them into top floor, mid floor, basement, cut the basement into 2 different entrances, have as many suites, individual suites in the house as they could without, doing much in the way of renovations. These were slapstick and shitbox rentals that ever since my adult life in the 90s, these rentals were always available, and they were cheaper, and they were working class, and then you had to know somebody who already lived there and get the reference to even get a chance at getting into the cheaper rent places in the good area of town, because these houses are all over, everywhere from UBC straight out to SFU, and all the student rentals that they've just divided. The students aren't here anymore. 500,000 fewer people in the whole Lower Mainland, at least that number. And then you have all the temporary students that were fudging, on their schooling to get jobs and compete in the jobs market and compete in the looking for cheap rental places. All the people that were applying, I swear there was literally 1 or 2 people that weren't on welfare. There was I don't know, about 8 people. I think 2 of them were like the same person, because one guy, he's French and he's having the translator, so he had his buddy to translate the French. The guy's like smoking cigarettes outside and stuff. You're like, this doesn't make much sense. But as I get to the point, they can't even knock these places down, and the economy, the economics, to make that a viable business plan to rent out for 2,000 or more. Because if they knock it down now, and the cost of materials and the cost of workmanship and the cost to build the whole new apartment building, that's gone up by a fair amount. So they need to put into their projections that they can make that $2,000 a month times 61 units. What is that? Well, that'd be like 120, and so 1 0 and 3 zeros. It's like $120,000 a month. 60 times 2,000, yeah, pretty much. So they can make $100,000 bank every month is what their projections are. But they can't do that because they'd spend all that money developing and building, and then nobody would move in. Well, at least they can rent it to 7 or 8 people at the $600 or $700 or $800 a month. So they can make maybe $4,000 or $5,000 like off these old places, like bank, like is what they were doing, which the economic model seemed to work. But all those places were the cheaper places. They were run down. They were business investments. Somebody said, "Do you want to sell? I'll buy it." They said, "Yeah, how much?" "Oh, that's more than I thought." "Okay, sold." And then the person who took that sale, who was working for the developers, they were all working off a funny fucking screwy math that the city council, that the real estate board, that the developers wanted to hear. It was all fucking bullshit. Straight up bullshit. And they had to rent out the whole place again so that they could make any amounts, because they're fucking losing money, these development companies, these real estate companies. So before they become insolvent, they got to find some place that's actually going to make them some money so they can keep operating and keep paying themselves wages. The guy I talked to on the internet about this place, very low, and it's like form emails that he's sending me back. So like, this doesn't seem like a local. I get there, I start talking to this woman, Rosa. "Oh, look, the garden is so nice." You're like, what the fuck? This thing's overgrown, and these are all weeds. Nobody's taken care of this garden in like decades. Somebody mows the grass, and then all that shit is just overgrown brambles and weeds up against the fence. Like, yeah, it's a nice garden. No, it's a shit box. And people are like, "Oh yeah, nice garden. I can come out here and smoke." And then they're lighting cigarettes at a interview. Who knows? Anyways, the scales have tipped, folks. The old economy that used to kind of sort of work, but not really, that's kind of sort of working better than what they have in the new economy, that is to spend millions. What would it be to build those 60 units? The cost to develop, they'd probably be looking at like $50-60 million plus. Who knows? And then to pay that off back to the bank, they got to have, a 30-year amortization or a 30-year bond or something. They're not going to be able to rent those units out and make that $100,000 bank every month, operating costs and what have you, that they could make those payments to the bank for 30 years. I've done the math, and some of these rents, when they're renting $2,000 for a tiny little shitbox fucking sardine can, because that's all they know how to build in Vancouver. Luxury condos, luxury McMansions, or absolute shit boxes, sardine cans that are like decrepit and falling apart before they even fucking open up. So the economy is not able to support those 60 units. You would open up and maybe be able to rent out 10 or 15 of them. It would take you more than 2 years, even in the prime location, but at those high rents, no, they can rent it out in the prime location at the lower rents, at the welfare rates, because it's an old shit box and the damn place is falling apart. Like, it should be knocked down. They can't afford to knock down these old shit boxes anymore. They either got to stay empty in holding companies to the bank behind a fence, or as we know, not even behind a fence, and then they got to take and borrow more money against it to make more developments while that one sits stagnant. They can't even do that anymore because the credit crunch is real, and they can't even borrow money against their assets because their assets are funny money and they're fucking broke. So the banks can keep that valuation on the book at the higher number, but if they're going to do a loan, they have to review that number. So the previous loans at that higher number they can keep, but as soon as they do a new loan, they're going to have to do new reassessments, and they're going to have to look at the math, which neither the property owner, the developer, nor the bank wants to do. So they're not able to get these loans and to get that credit released on these older and shittier properties that they were going to develop, or that could be sometime, because it's in a prime location, so it's got to be worth something, but we can't tell you what it's worth because we have to keep the bullshit old numbers of what we once thought it was worth. Well, none of this shit's working out. I don't know if I should message the guy back. I'm just like, fuck this noise. There's so many places. There's places in the West End. There's places in the expensive, around closer to the schools. See, because they have a generational wave. So there's not as many people who are looking to go to school because there's not as many people that are at that high school graduation age. We're in a deficit after all the millennials went to school. So the trail end, and then the Generation Z, they call them, that's coming up to being all the graduates out of high school, they're far fewer. The number of the Generation Z that are first time or just born here to immigrant parents in Canada, they're not the ones that go to school at anywhere near the rates of the previous, the already settled, the already assimilated generation that came before them. So they're going to go out and work in their family business, in the company of their cousins and their other people who speak the same language, and then the imports, the just off the boater types, they're going to be competing with them for jobs, and we'll see how you like it, but they're not going to be going into school. The amount of foreigners that are coming in for temporary school visas, the Mark Carney and the Liberals, they cut that way out a year ago. The numbers of applications was going down ever since the COVID times. The government realized, oh, okay, we're going to cut the numbers of applications. The numbers were already going down. They don't have the younger population to fill those spots, those desks in the school. There's no want. There's no... People are going, wait a minute, you guys got all these degrees and then you don't have a job in your field? Yeah, I want to go to school. Yeah, I want it, but I got to go get a job, and that's what people are doing. And then they're finding trouble. Usually when there's trouble in the job market, the increases in the school market, because people go back to school and they get a new skill, they get a new training, and then they re-enter the jobs market with that certificate or that schooling. That's not happening this time, because all the people who would have gone back to school, they've already done that. They're still struggling. They've moved off and used that paperwork that they got previously to get a job someplace else where they actually have jobs. They're not going to school here to re-educate or recertify themselves. So you have this massive drop in the locals that want cheap, close to school student rental. It's not happening, folks. And the people in the office towers at the real estate companies, they don't do the math on this. They just think, oh, because the projections, oh, because it was going up, and then when it's going down, they keep hoping it's going to keep going back up again, and we're going to, oh, something's going to change. Oh, yeah, well, it's just this. We just got to wait out the U.S. on this trade deal, and then the numbers will go up again. But waiting for the midterms ain't been working there, eh, Carney and fucking crew? They gotta talk turkey on a real deal with this Kuzma while the politicians flitter off to fucking the other side of the world to go and hobnob it with their overpriced elites and fucking suck on the hot buttered lobsters, right? Well, that's what's important to the liberals. That's not what's important to the people who can't even find rentals for their high-priced units in Vancouver. None of the stuff that's brand new and high rent is renting. Yeah, limited amounts, and it's because of the location. People are getting suckered in. But as soon as anything cheap comes up, once again, they've got now... If this had been years ago, like I said, they get in on the reference. There wouldn't have been this advertisement and you can meet at this time, and then, like I said, they line it up so there's like 6 or 7 or 8 people all going through at the same time. The woman has ESL deficits. She can't explain herself. Obviously full of shit about how nice the place is. She knows nothing about whether it's a gas stove or electric. She knows nothing about any of the area, any of the amenities in the area, anything. So you're like, once again, you've just shown up off the boat, gotten suckered yourself. You got this job to tell us what to do in our own fucking property market. And all the locals are starving fucking welfare bums looking for cheap rent. That's who we've got in Vancouver. The ultra rich and the ultra poor fucking mental patient drug addicts. Everybody in the middle, and everybody looking to obtain that middle and go to schooling so that they can enter the middle class when they enter the jobs market. Zero. It is not happening. That people that have this economy and still have jobs and still have the ability to pay the rent at the place that they're at, some of them are moving around and finding cheaper rents, but most of them have been there for many years and they just stick where they're at. I talking to my friend, oh yeah, what about the haunted house over here? Oh, what about this empty lot? What about that? They don't even see, oh, you mean the community garden? They're just daft because they've been in that same neighborhood for so fucking long. Oh, look, it's a community garden. How the hell can it be a community garden right on Broadway, right on the thoroughfare, in between 2 commercial buildings? On the other side of the street, they've just got a brand new remodel that's been opened in the last 4 or 5 years. The commercial space on the bottom's leased out, probably at way too high of a rate, and the top floors got filled out. 2-3 floors of apartments or something like that. and it's like brand new, sitting across the street from buildings that are like 100 years old, 80, 90, and then they're not even knocking those down. If they do knock them down, they leave a hole in the wall, a hole in the, like it looks like you're missing a tooth just as you go down the main street. If there was any economy locally that could support that, you would have another commercial site and you would have stuff built, but because they charge so much, there's so much development tax, there's so much tax on that fucking shit. If they put it in limbo, there's nobody there, there's nothing going on, there's no commercial activity, they're not paying the same property tax. When it's in the development application, they pay the development fees, and that's the tax. So they're paying like a one-time fee to let it sit there for the next 10 years. A lot of these ones that now, because of what has happened since COVID and now the credit crunch, it's going to be 20, 25, 30 years before anybody ever puts the spade in the ground. And I've seen more work, more excavators, but it's still puttering work. And it's like they're doing it just to show off that there's still construction work happening. But instead of a crew of 40, 50, 60 guys doing the excavation and doing the footings and building the formwork, it's like 15 or 18 or sub 25 people on the whole site. And you're like, this is odd. This is odd. There'd be 3 different crews. There'd be the surveyors, there'd be the excavators, and then there'd be the formwork guy. There'd be rebar guys too that would be different than the formwork company. And yet you see like the excavator crew, they'd have other crews working in there synonymous with, or at the same time. And there'd be 3 times, there'd be, there's 25%, it'd be 400% the amount of people working there. But the people who aren't in construction don't know how these things work. They just drive by, the road's partially closed. Oh, still so much construction. Everywhere you look, everywhere you turn, you can't find a road that's not, under construction. Yeah, they're doing that on purpose. The city's got it set up. That's the only crews I see working around is road crews. That's all they do anymore is road crews, and they block traffic and they disrupt your fucking day. And it's just to fool you into thinking that there's still construction going on. All that fucking road work was stuff that they should have done many years ago. It's been building up. They're finally going, oh, well, instead of directing our money into all these developments that we can't get them to actually put the spade in the ground over, let's go have road crews so that people still vote us in because they think that there's still economy or business or something's happening. When really on the ground it's not. And they're going backwards. They're going backwards back to the let's milk these old buildings for anything we can get out of them, even at the welfare rates, just to get people in there and paying us the fucking rent on a monthly basis. So it's getting really bad in Vancouver if they know, and they're starting to realize in the real estate companies, they're all fools though. They're all way behind the scale. They're all way off the pace. They're all dumber than shit. A whole bunch of them are people who just showed up off the fucking boat and got here and told us how we're supposed to operate our real estate market. Because, oh look, I've got the big fucking nameplate beside my fucking, I work for the real estate company and I don't know shit about the neighborhood, shit about the property, or shit about how to run a property in general, because they got that job through fucking friends, because they could speak the language of the owner, of whoever's the manager who was stupid enough to buy into this fucking company and take the responsibility or the onus of the fucking company that's going under, the company that they can't turn a profit, or they can't make the same as when they were on paper, made it look like they could make bank, but that was more credit. Now that the credit crunch is real, they're looking for suckers to take over the onus, or the debt side of their failed company. So that's what we got going on here in Schittscoover. The real estate companies are finally starting to fucking catch up to the fact that they can't charge these fucking higher rates. They can't. Half the city is missing. MIA. They've all moved off. There's no jobs here left, folks, because nobody's building empty condos for foreigners who don't live there, and people are starting to look around and go, well, I could go move over there. It was always only the cheaper rent places that had the lineups for them. You could go anywhere, and if you had the Uncle Moneybags fucking big sacks of cash, you could rent out, and not even luxury, just by the area if you wanted to live downtown. Anywhere in this town, you could pick and choose, and if you had the X number of several thousands of dollars a month, you could go there and get a place. Easy peasy. And in fact, the higher rental places, they didn't do credit checks. If you showed up with money and you were willing to pay those higher rents, you didn't get a credit check. They just hope that next month your check doesn't bounce. That's why the only people who could afford that shit were drug dealers. Anything cheap, anything affordable, they were lined up out the door. Not so at all the other rental locations. You could always walk right in, see the place, go, how much? Okay, I'll take it. And the real estate guys would get all giddy because they couldn't find anybody to rent at those rates. You could even negotiate and get lower rates on those higher rentals, and you couldn't on the lower, the cheaper rentals, because they had 30 people lined up right behind you trying to apply, trying to show their credit score, trying to say that they have had the same job for multiple years. It was always a fraud. You've been defrauded if you've lived in the Lower Mainland anytime. Obviously they were doing these frauds before 1985, but anytime in the last 40 fucking years, folks, was always a fraud. We never had a housing crisis. There was never a shortage of actual housing. And more to that point, they make it so that you can't build, so that the only thing that's economical to make money for the machine is to put up these 30 fucking foot towers of empty fucking apartments, towers of Babel into the fucking sky. Then it's economical and it makes money for the economy. Hasn't been. It hasn't been. When that money was in the plus, in the plus positive integers, that's the money that got shipped overseas. That's the money that went someplace else. Back to the USA, back to China, back to someplace in Europe or Asia, I guess. But sure as hell didn't get reinvested back here. If that money from those 60 units, if they built it and had the money from the 60 units, that's just paying off the bank so that they can, keep selling more real estate securities to pension funds. So it's not staying in town. Like if the development company had made those profits itself, they could go forward and do more work. Every time they'd finish off a project, the cost was so high, they would be paying off the debt for that. So they would never, because they paid themselves their own wages ahead of time before they could make bank, all their architects, all their developers, all their contractors, they'd be getting paid out of that debt. And then the people who'd move in would be responsible for paying back the debt of those wages of the people giving themselves bonuses when they were fucking failing the whole way through. So as that building becomes available and nobody moves in to rent it, well, they can't move on and do another project. The company's insolvent. The company's been paying out its own wages for so long that they can't cover those debts. And that's what's going on with these bailouts. All these jobs in the private sector are all government jobs. That's how these property developments have been working out. The government's got it so skewed to pay so much development fees so you can leave stuff empty and borrow money against it. So then the only way that's viable is the 30-floor tower of sardine cans into the sky that they have to take and pay themselves out of what is the future debt. So you were always paying back the wages of 5 years earlier when that development was started. And it's going to take, what, 10, 15 years to even get to the break-even point, to even pay off the interest on the banks and the cost, and then the next 15 years to even make anything in the way of a profit. They've screwed up the model so much, just tilted to the side of the insiders, that they all get their cut first, and then everybody else trying to rent it, trying to sell it, trying to resell the apartments or the condos is left on the hook, paying back the debt of these overpriced fucking shit. Because the higher the numbers get, the higher the percentages get on their cut, or the longer that these regular mortgage company or development company or real estate company wages are paying themselves out every 2 weeks. Well, if that goes on for extra years, that they get the cash side of the bond out of the wages for the getting paid to basically do the same thing as what all the other places were doing, what the government bureaucrats are doing. They say it's private wages, but it hasn't been. They've just been working for the government because there's only one system. It's a one-trick pony town, and everything is geared towards this same: borrow so much money off the property that's a hard asset, and when you get to the point that you can't pay that back and we're not going to advance you any more money, then you have to develop it, put the development application in, put the application for the credit lines in, get the credit, build the building, all the jobs, they get paid out of that line of credit, and they're working on future earnings of these rental units that will never be realized because nobody can afford those numbers, because those numbers were all suppositional based on 500,000 students still showing up, having Uncle Moneybags kind of money that they were borrowing on student loan debt. The whole system is based on people borrowing against 3 ways off against the middle just to pay for somebody else's debt from 5 years ago. That's all they've got going on out here in Vancouver, folks. You couldn't even fucking make up a sinister story like this if you tried. I don't know. There's a chance to get more interviews of such a nature. There's lots of places. Most of the places I wouldn't get a response back. But because, like I said, these people are kind of new to the game in town, they just do blanket form letters. So anybody who messages them, they keep the message back, and then it's like, okay, call this number. And they don't speak English, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And you think, okay, well, maybe I should. Everybody was eager to apply because of the rates. And so out of the 8 people, there's like 6 or 7 of them that are there messaging the guy back, right? As soon as the lady's showing us through the whole house and say, oh, this suite here, this suite here, this suite here, this suite here. In fact, now that I think about it, of all the places, which is just several, I haven't gone to one building where it's a one-off. I've talked to people on the messenger or on the phone about a one-off, but I haven't gone and see it. All the ones that I've actually gotten to go see, that we've set up the appointment, or that I've just gotten a walk-in because I've called in, they've all got multiple suites. And some of them, it's not just that building, because the real estate company manages multiple buildings in the same area. And so they have suites in all these different buildings, but they want to rent this one. They're trying to rent this one first. Oh, okay, well, I guess, okay, so you can see the studio. Okay, well, the X number, 1900 for the one bedroom, 1600, 1450 for the bachelor, maybe, you know what I mean? It's like $300-400 difference per month. So it's like, oh, well, they try and show you the one bedrooms first, because they've got multiple of those. They got a few of the studios left, and then they're like, oh, okay, I'll show you the studio. So I've gone through that too. There is a high amount, all these homes with the mortgage helper in the basement suites, they've got a lot of listings that say half the basement suite, shared accommodation. It's a lot of it, those are the ones that they want shared female, right? I've never seen this many places for rent. Back in the 90s, there wasn't even this many places for rent. Just at the start of everybody turning their basement into, and it had already been happening, but that was when everybody who owned a house had to have a mortgage helper to be able to keep paying the high rates of the increase of the mortgage, or that then they could get a line of credit, do the renovations, and then have a renter pay off their line of credit. That way, after 5 or 10 years that they've paid off the renovations, then they're going to be making bank, and then that's going to be going to the principal on their mortgage. And these are the sorts of economic strategies and investment house strategies that they've been running for the last 30 or 40 years out here. And it seems like as though they're going to the old system of just having that little bit of extra income, or a little bit of income per month. And you know what? Those are the houses that I look at them, I realize that it's, some sort of Jeep. No, you see if you can find somebody else to rent it, because it's not the way it was. It'll never be the way that it was again, because people know Vancouver is not a world-class city. There is no effing reason. If we had things cheap and you could go kayaking, go hiking, not hitchhiking, go hiking in the woods, if you could go skiing, or if you could go on these outdoor, the mountain biking, the traveling around in an RV, going camping, these are like the pastimes that people would do out here, because we have the great wild north and all the great forests and stuff. So you could have lots of tourism again, but you gotta have it. They made it so expensive. It's like people are like, well, I can go to Las Vegas cheaper, I can go to Miami cheaper, I can go to Singapore for about the same price. That's an international flight for what, like 14-16 hours, and then you're in a city of like 8 or 10 million people, a modern city. And then once you get to that city, things in the street are cheaper with your American dollar. Not so. Vancouver is like, what, an hour flight from some other place in North America, maybe 4 if you're coming from the Panhandle, or what do they call it, the Florida, the other side of the continent, maybe 4 hours. And it's more expensive than if you went and took a vacation in Tokyo. Like, the levels of insane, because they just kept talking themselves up on the golf course with their buddies. Ooh, the prestige, the amounts of money. You were working for the banks. You were working for the government. You were working for the fucking Euro banksters to just be stupid and go along to get along, and they just kept following a fucking along with all their fucking retarded buddies, and it never worked out for anyone. It never worked out for any of us down here in the fucking streets, boy, I tell you. But you know who it is working for? Fuck. It's working out for the fucking drug dealers who need to launder their money, the fucking property system, and that's the only way they can keep the money on shore, is by making it so easy to launder the money back through property. Otherwise, that money would be leaving, be going to fund more acts of international terrorism. It's the only ones it works for. When people are miserable, they ain't got no jobs, they ain't got no money. That's the fucking thing. They somehow can still go to the liquor store. They somehow, because I'm eating fucking beans and rice. You think if I fucking walked down the street and found a fucking, $50 bill on the ground, yeah, I'd go and buy a fucking steak sandwich and some fucking beer myself. Probably because I'm fucking stupid, but you know what I mean? I'm just saying, everybody can somehow still afford the fucking beer or the fucking drugs, but they can't afford to eat, or they can't afford to eat properly. And you know why that is? Because all your fucking money goes to covering up the crimes of these bastards who work for the banks, who work for the real estate companies, and who work for the fucking drug dealers. They're all in cahoots together, and they think that you don't know that they're working within the same. It's the government, the fucking black market drug gangs, and the fucking banks are all in it together to get at you and your fucking children and your fucking neighbors. And what do Canadians think is a good idea? They think it's a good idea to tear down their neighbors and tell them all that they've got the prestige of living in the nice part of town, even if it's an old building, even if it's shitty, even if it's run down, even if they're paying way too much for what they get. They still think that they've got that prestige when they talk to people in the fucking neighborhood. And then it works both ways. If you can be in the neighborhood paying a lower rate, then they'll brag about that. If you can be in the neighborhood paying a higher rate, then they'll brag about that. It's just fucking stupidity, and you can't even fucking help them with a fucking brick through their fucking noggin out here. It's taken years, and they've taken a lot of bricks to the fucking head, I guess, because they're starting to realize it's going to be easier to rent this old fucking place out to welfare bums and collect some amount of money, because they're not going to be able to do the development. They're not going to be able to secure the credit, and that amount of credit that they're going to have to secure is so much more than it was when they first started the project and the proposals, and they can't, the margins, they can't keep up with the rate of inflation, the rate of absolute money printing. That's what they did. They did a whole splurge of fucking money printing again at fucking the BOC, and that's just going back. That's what they say. People are going into more debt to pay back the older debt at lower rates, and they're borrowing even more at higher rates to pay off the old. It's not working, folks. It's not going to work. It cannot work. It is the physics of numbers. Like, they can't. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. You can't be this fucking clueless for this long, fucking Vancouver. You gotta look around you. Like I always say, I'm just gonna go around and start throwing fucking bricks through these fucking empty places' windows. Now, Is that a good idea? I don't know. I went by a house that I just gone by it. I swear to God, this place is empty. It's the way that I go on the bike route. I go down the hill, and then you don't want to go back up the hill. So I didn't go, and I had other things to do. I'm like, fuck, there's a bunch of them. I just go by the area a few times. You see the fucking signs, and you're like, yeah. But you have to go back and investigate, start walking around the property, see if the neighbors pop their head out, see where the lines of sight are, see where your means of egress are. You gotta be smart about it. People go on vacation in the summer and such like that. But anyways, been ranting for fucking 45 minutes for a 3-minute video. This is gonna take forever to upload. You can't explain the details in 3 minutes. I gotta put it succinctly and let the people know. Let everybody you fucking talk to. They just move the same population all around, chasing after the lower rents in the area, the lower rents that are closer to where they work or go to school. There is no such thing as a housing crisis anywhere in British Columbia. There never was. And if they just lower the fucking price, maybe we could get some tourism back and actually get some people coming back into the economy with money. The local economy with money. I mean, the people who are coming in now, they're all the immigrants. They're all just trying to tell you how to run your fucking property market so that they can make money and they can fucking leave. All these people that they're gonna go bust in the next year or two because they can't rent the place out, or they can't rent the place out at the numbers that they were projected at. There's a whole bunch of them that are gonna be closing up shop, and they get bought up by more and more bigger ones. Brookfield, that's where we're going. Everything's gonna be, and this is who Mark Carney's setting up in his cabinets and shit like that. This is so fucking corrupt. They're gonna let it stagnate in limbo until the dollar drops so much that the USA, they're gonna work this fucking Kuzma deal for as long as they fucking can, hold it off till there's so much hurting that all these American companies are gonna have 60-cent dollar, and they're gonna, once it gets viable, even with all those taxes, even with all those, the government's not gonna relinquish on their tax fucking burden. They're gonna buy you out when you're gonna take on the debt, and so your company's gonna be going down. You're gonna declare bankruptcy, but you're gonna take on the bankruptcy. Well, the USA company, the New York fucking banksters, the Carney's buddies, are gonna come in, buy up that shit for pennies on the dollar, for nickels on the dollar, get the contracts for the what's that called, the mining and the minerals and the expropriation contracts, ultra cheap, that they can still have enough of a margin to pay those higher tax rates. The government thinks that then they'll be able to increase those tax rates until they go again, another 30-year cycle, another 30-year bond cycle, to then be able to have everybody contraction and then start pumping and dumping again. It's not gonna work this time. It's not gonna work this time, folks. It didn't work out the last time, the last 5-year bond printing from 2020, and it ain't gonna work out for them this time either. Mark my words, folks. Anywho, coffee's getting cold and stagnant. I've got leftover rice to eat. You know, I'm really not doing that bad. If I could be doing the cyberpunk lifestyle and just taking care of myself, I'd be fine. I'd be having fun. This would be a relaxing fucking adventure. I have all these court fucking documents. I didn't get to the library yesterday. I'm gonna go do that today. I was supposed to be there in the fucking morning so I could make sure I got a computer. We'll see how that goes, folks. Anywho, your morning fucking pep talk and reality fucking smackdown from Schitt's Coover. Everybody's left. There was one Now, some of the people may have been, recent transplants or born elsewhere in Canada and then showed up in Vancouver, like the French guys. But I don't know. There was one guy who was having real trouble with English, and then talking to the ESL person. He was a just off the boat immigrant looking for cheap rent. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that, like I said, there's only one or two people out of the whole, 7 or 8 that were doing this tour. That there's obviously a pensioner. There was obviously several people that were disabled and on welfare. And there was one immigrant. Other times, it would have been like 50-50 looking for those cheap rents. But there would have been more people. So there would have been 15 people lined up. So there's 4, 5, 6, or 7 immigrants or recent off the boaters that came here to steal your fucking jobs, that they weren't showing up there. Like what I'm seeing in front of my own eyes as I go around and look at these property markets, it is empty. Everybody's left here. There's nobody competing for these places. They are, because it's cheaper, but anything that's higher than the other place, they're sitting there empty, and they're just waiting on somebody to show up, even for a viewing or anything. So here we go, off to the races, folks. I can't help you. I can't even help myself. I don't know what to tell you, folks. It's getting fucking... This is why I don't even care if I apply. I'll probably send the guy some messages just to see what the results are, just so I could talk about it, because, it seems like a point of interest to me to see where we're at in the marketplace. But I'm telling you, after September, because if they were going to school in September, there'd be people showing up looking for places right about now. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it at all. I'm seeing a lot of places. Comes with desk, comes with bed, partially furnished, easily furnished, just a 1 bedroom, $800-900, some thousands, $1,100-1,200 for just a shared accommodation rental. These are the old prices. They're not getting the views. They got it down like $600-700. They get views, but they gotta get smacked in the face with reality when by the end of September there's not that 500,000 students. They're not here. There's nobody looking, and the schools, they're firing professors and they're dropping courses. We'll see how it goes over the next month, but I really do not have I don't know. I'm not worried about finding a place when the weather fucking turns to the shit. I don't think there's going to be a big rush in a month of people looking for places. There's way less. The only people I find, I was talking to them, they're homeless and drug addicts. They won't go back to the shelter because they won't go back in that direction, because that's where the shelter is. They're not going to be able to help themselves unless they get, these workers to help them out. The social services, the homelessness industry, they even think that they're going down, and they can't even they're looking find anybody that they can get on paper to give them their names in particular, so they can say that they're helping someone, even when they're not there. They're not. Everybody's fucked off back to where they came from in Canada. No jobs, no under the table jobs anymore, so they can collect the government money and still work under the table. There's too much competition for those kind of jobs. They can't. And the immigrants and the people that are showing up, they're turning around and they're leaving. Because even if they can get the government benefits, they can't send the remittances. They need those under the table jobs to be able to send the money back home, and they're not getting them. And the fucking schools are gonna fucking start closing down, and the teachers are gonna start losing their jobs, and even the government employees in the housing industry, in the homelessness industry, the only thing that's going up is the drugs. They can do outreach workers for people who are on drugs, and that's all we got going on. The luxury condos, the rich, the yachts, the golf courses, they're all going down. The only thing that's going up is the drugs and the drug use and the fucking bullshit there. And that's what we got to deal with, is absolute fucking bullshit drug addicts and money laundering and fucking drug gangs. So you're gonna see the crime rates, the murder rates, the assault rates keep going up, and then nobody's gonna want to come here even if they do have a job or a chance at a job, because those they're not. It's just gonna keep on being fuckery, folks. We are fucked, and this is all these liberal policies, and they can't backtrack. They can't backpedal and admit that they were wrong when it's just smacking them in the face on a daily basis. Well, I hope to add my 2 cents in. I gotta get heading out west. If I'm gonna be stagnating in town, I wanted to head all the way up the valley and then all the way back and take pictures of the empty fucking places and the for sale signs and the developments that aren't happening. Then it started to rain. Now the weather's nicer. I should really get back on track. But I have all these fucking court paperwork to fuck around with. I keep saying once I get these things filed, and then it's just fuck. Gotta add this to that. I gotta do this. Triple crown. Civil, family, and criminal court. I decided to focus on the criminal court this week, and I stalled out. So I gotta focus on the family law, the criminal court, and some of this fucking civil shit. I gotta do them all. I got 3 more days. 1 per day. I gotta get going, folks. I'll see what I can come back to you with in the way of empty city and bullshit. We'll see how that goes. But as far as for now, have a great fuck off. Fuck David Eby. Fuck the liberal fucking policies. Fuck the goddamn NDP. These people are fucking commie fucking pinko bastards, and they are not working for you. They're working for the international fucking Jew. The banksters, the globalists, the internationalists, the true reds, the pinkos who think that they're fucking so smart. They're not. They're not, folks. See you next 3-minute rant that goes on for 3 fucking hours.